Hey, it's Luke here, and in today's video we'll be taking a dive in the world of concept phones, and I've gathered my thoughts on the top 4 concepts that I wished made a line to full mass production. It's gonna be interesting. Let's begin. So, first up, design. And one that really did win my heart in the place of design is the Oneplus Concept one. So, where should I start? Oh yeah, the backstory. On January 2020 at CES, which is like the Tech Hall of Fame, OnePlus mentioned they were working with McLaren for the last 18 months to kinda bring one feature of the McLaren sports cars to their actual devices. What tech, you might ask? Well, the electrochromic glass. I swear that word is very difficult to pronounce in a sentence. But fundamentally, electrochromic glass is just a digital tint for a glass. Put more current in that glass, you get more tint. Put less current on that glass, you get less tint. So how is this tech useful in a smartphone in the first place? Well, OnePlus was thinking that, hey, you could use this tech of ours as a physical ND for your smartphone camera. And if you're someone who doesn't know what ND is, it's basically an attachment, or some people call it a filter, that's put on professional cameras to kind of lower those bright spots in an image, to kind of neutralize that image in across the board, and to kind of look cool, I guess, and nothing else. But hey, that's exactly how the OnePlus Concept 1 got its place in my chair of design. Just the design, looking at it, it's pretty sick, it's pretty dope. So yeah, this easily scored tremendous points when I was comparing it with the Mi Mix Alpha in place of design. But you know what the Mi Mix Alpha won is the display. So let's talk about it. So the year is 2019 and pretty much everyone is coming up with a curved display. And Xiaomi, noticing this, comes with a transcender in their Mi Mix lineup of devices, the Xiaomi Mi Mix Alpha. And what the Mi Mix Alpha was trying to answer a question is that what would happen if we took those dramatic curves on the displays and just wrap them and melt them way over the sides and the back of the phone. But before we continue, most of you guys aren't subscribed yet, so make sure you subscribe and hit the like button because we're trying to reach 1,000 guys of you by the end of the year, and your engagement with this video surely does count. Now, back to the video. So was Xiaomi fixing a problem here, or was it inventing a completely different new one in the first place? Well, it begs the obvious questions. What else would you need a screen for when you've got 360-degree screen? Xiaomi was thinking that, hey, you could use the front display as normal, just normal browsing stuff, scrolling the web and exalting the UI, and you could use the sides in two ways. First, well, you could use it to show your notifications, and you could use the status bar, but the complete trade-off you have for a 360-degree smartphone is obviously the buttons, because there wasn't place for any buttons in the first place. I mean, if you ignore the power button, which was way up top the display, you pretty much have little to no buttons to play with in the first place. So Xiaomi was introducing virtual buttons. It wasn't the first concept to be heard of, but it was definitely cool how they would execute, considering that the full 360 degrees screen, which you needed to deal with obvious things like perm rejection, like accidental touches, and things like that. You could use it for taking better selfies, because it's obvious that taking selfies with the main camera is way better because it just has more quality and detail and attention put to the other cameras. I'm not saying the other cameras are bad, but most smartphones that is the case. So you had a boost up of selfies here. And what else? The cool factors. For starters, my buddies who like wallpapers, you could change the wallpaper not only to the front of the glass, but to the sides and to the back. I mean, isn't that cool? And imagine meeting up with someone in person in the streets, just walking down and holding this phone to use, where you can pretty much see it from the back, from the sides, and from the front. That will be the equivalent of seeing a sports car like McLaren on the streets, which is pretty cool if you ask me. So that was the display champ of this category. You know, smartphones today are creeping to close the gap between them and traditional conventional PCs. I mean, the benchmark speaks for themselves. But let alone the benchmarks, most creator apps like for video editing, apps for code compiling, and most video games can run natively on smartphones as they do on high-end PCs, which begs the obvious question that what prevents a smartphone from overthrowing the place of a PC? Well, for obvious reasons. Number one is being the physical dimensions of smartphones that are a limiting factor for them to become PCs. So, let's try to eat away the smartphone PC gap by starting with the obvious cooling, like active cooling mechanics. The ROG phones have tried it by bringing the fans into a smartphones, but hey, we could do it smarter. And luckily enough, Oneplus had the same exact question, but they didn't go the Asus way or the ROG way, but they went an extra mile and be a little more creative. They went their own way. They called it active cryoflux cooling. What is it you say? Just take a look for yourself. And before you say anything down in the comments that this is CGI or this is fake, this is active, real, actual fluid flowing through the display. Well, except for the lighting, that's just an RGB effect. So the idea of placing active cryoflux cooling on the back of the phone is that it could keep cool the power-hungry components, that is the CPU, the GPU, and the battery. The funny thing is, fellow YouTuber Linus from LTT actually tried out the active cryoflux cooling on the OnePlus 11 Concept, and by his finding, yes, it technically worked, but it didn't last until the thermal saturation of the device was met. Imagine how it would be like when this tech was actually implemented in smartphones and it actually did work. In theory, you could boost your game's performance, you could literally stay cool in the entire time you use your phones, even when pushing it to their maximum limits. So yeah, this did actually give me a hint of what performance could be when we had active cryoflux or any active methods of cooling on the back of the devices. But fellow creators and enthusiasts, I was thinking that hey, what else are the smartphones trying to replace aside from the high-performance PCs? And it snapped to me like the cameras. I mean, smartphones have literally eaten away the entry-level point-and-shoot cameras, and it's clear that the DSLR cameras are next. But how close have we been to actually close that gap? Well, the Xiaomi 12S Ultra concept tries to answer that specific kind of question. I'm thinking that when they were making this phone, they were like,
why isn't it possible? It's just not. Why not?
So its concept was achieved by Xiaomi partnering with the German camera company manufacturer Leica. And the resulting collab gave the Xiaomi 12S Ultra a boost in the camera department. This was clearly the closest we've ever gotten by merging these two worlds of cameras, professional cameras, actual real cameras, with the smartphones that we use. I mean, it was a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, boy.
Because considering the first time we merged these two worlds, we got phones like the Samsung Galaxy camera, which wasn't that very successful. I mean, the idea of having detachable camera lenses is pretty cool, but the idea of paying 43,000 for just a smartphone with these features, where you can get tons of smartphones and millions of cameras, hundreds of cameras for this price tag, is nearly incomparable. But hey, at least they had the audacity of even trying this concept and pushing it to the media for even having attention of 1 or 2 seconds, which is so yeah, that was it. And 4 is a pretty odd number to be included in this kind of videos where you have smartphones like the Vivo Apex, smartphones like the LG Rollerboard and the likes, but I left that specific position and number for you guys to tell me what phone you wished, what concept you wished made a line to full mass production down the comments below. But until then, I was your host Luke, and as always, the only limit is your imagination.